Welcome to The Explainer. So, we're all living through this absolutely insane age of technological change, right? And it's all being driven by AI. But the big question is, how do we make sure this change actually benefits everyone and not just, a handful of people? Well, today, we're going to dig into a blueprint that lays out a really concrete plan for a future where technology is actually designed to serve all of us.
And that right there, that's the central question this whole new policy idea sets out to answer. See, it's not just about kind of reacting to change as it happens. The goal here is to get in the driver's seat and actively steer this thing toward a future that's more fair and stable for everybody.
Now, I want to be clear, this isn't some vague philosophical manifesto. Nope. It's a super detailed, piece-by-piece plan that's actually designed to be tested, tweaked, and made better out in the real world. So, okay, let's dive in and see how it's supposed to work. All right, first things first, let's really get our heads around the core problem this whole blueprint is trying to solve. Because the challenge isn't just AI itself, it's the absolutely mind-boggling speed it's moving at. I mean, look at this comparison. The steam engine took decades to spread. The internet took years. But with AI, we're seeing models double their capabilities in just a few months. It's accelerating change so much faster than our society and our economy can possibly keep up. Think about that. What used to take a whole generation to unfold is now happening in the time it takes for the seasons to change. And that puts a ton of pressure on everything, from our jobs to our basic institutions. And this crazy speed leads to something the authors call the fragility of narrow ownership. It sounds a little academic, but the idea is simple. When all the incredible wealth and power from AI gets vacuumed up by a really small group of people, it doesn't just make them rich and everyone else less so. No, it actually creates a really shaky, unstable system for all of us. Okay, so what's the answer then? Well, the proposed solution is this big, comprehensive plan. It's built on a few core ideas that all lock together, and the whole point is to build a stronger, more resilient society, really, from the ground up. And these three principles, dignity, transparency, and shared ownership, they're basically the foundation for the entire plan. And the logic is actually pretty straightforward, right? You can't really expect people to be creative or start businesses or innovate if they're constantly worried about where their next meal is coming from or if they can pay rent. So dignity has to come first. And from that, you build the trust you need for a society that can actually share the amazing benefits of all this progress. Something that's really important to get here is that this is not about tearing down the current system and starting from scratch. Not at all. The whole blueprint is designed to be a complementary framework. It's meant to work with our existing system, adding these new layers of support that make everything stronger and open up more opportunities for everybody.
Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty. We're going to talk about the most concrete part of this whole blueprint, this idea of a guaranteed baseline of security for every single person. It's called the dignity floor.
So the dignity floor is built on these 6 pillars, and it's not just the absolute basics like housing and food security. Look at what else is on there: healthcare, transportation, and even high-speed internet, which, let's be real, is an essential utility these days for work and school. Plus, there's a small cash payment, a dividend. The whole goal here is to get rid of that constant background hum of anxiety about basic survival, because when you remove that fear, you free people up to take a risk, learn a new skill, or maybe even start their own business. So, how do you tackle something like nutrition security? Well, one idea in the plan is this citizen commissary. You can pretty much think of it like the commissaries the US military has, which are known for being super cost-effective. The government would use its massive buying power to purchase essential healthy foods in bulk and then sell them at cost, plus a tiny fee for upkeep. It's a public option to keep food prices stable and affordable. And what about transportation? This is a cool one. The plan suggests using all this new driverless vehicle tech to create a public transportation network. Basically, treating mobility like a public utility, just like water or electricity. This would mean super low cost, maybe even free rides for people, which would be a total game changer. It could pretty much erase the geographic lines that keep people from getting to better jobs, doctor's appointments, or schools. And that brings us to the small cap dividend. We're looking at a sample range here, maybe $300 to $500 a month. This is a modest, no strings attached cash payment that goes to every adult. And to be clear, it's not meant to replace a job. It's just enough to give you some breathing room to cover an unexpected car repair or a kid's field trip, or just to help make ends meet without going into debt. Okay, so a system this big obviously raises a huge question: who pays for all this?
It's a fair question, and the answer, in the long run, is actually pretty elegant. The idea is to fund it by sharing the enormous economic value that AI itself is creating. Now, this is where things get really interesting, because the funding mechanism they propose isn't just some theory. It's based on a real-world model that actually works. You've got the Alaska Permanent Fund, which takes a slice of the state's oil revenue and pays it out to residents. Well, the idea here is a national AI dividend fund that does the exact same thing, but instead of oil, it captures a share of the wealth being generated by AI and automation. So how would it do that? Simple. The fund would acquire small, minority stakes. We're talking just 1 to 5% in the big AI companies. Again, this is not a government takeover. It's not about controlling these companies. It's just about making sure that the public, which helped create this value through decades of public research, public data, and public infrastructure, gets a small slice of the pie. Then you take the money the fund makes and you plow it right back into the public in 3 key ways. The biggest chunk, 60%, goes straight to the people as those per capita dividends. That's the security part. The other 40% is split between workforce retraining and seed money for new small businesses. That's the opportunity part. So you see, it creates this really cool, virtuous cycle of security and growth. Now, you can't build a system this ambitious without some serious guardrails, right? You absolutely need to ensure accountability. And you also have to create clear incentives for people to contribute back to society in all the different ways people can. And this is how the system encourages contribution without making it a requirement. Take a look at this capability ladder. Tier 0, the dignity floor, is totally unconditional. You get it no matter what. But if you choose to contribute, whether it's through part-time work, job training, caring for a relative, or even starting a business, you can climb the ladder to get extra financial support and access to things like seed capital. It values all kinds of contributions. So, how do you make sure a system like this stays trustworthy? With radical transparency. First, you have what's called the glass box state. This means all government spending and performance data is made public and machine-readable by default. Anyone can audit it. Then, to top it off, you have citizen juries. These are panels of regular, randomly selected people who are given real legal power to audit big decisions. It's a direct check on power designed to keep the system honest. Okay, this all sounds great in theory, but how would you actually get something this massive off the ground? Well, the proposal is smart about this. It avoids a big top-down one-size-fits-all mandate. Instead, the whole approach is much more careful, scientific, and designed to adapt. The whole method is built on one simple idea. Pilot first and only scale what works. So you'd start by launching a bunch of different pilot programs in different kinds of communities all over the country to test things out. Then you evaluate them rigorously, with all the data being public. And here's the kicker. You only scale up the programs that are proven, with hard evidence, to have a real positive impact. It's all about evidence, not ideology. So I think the most important thing to remember is that this isn't some all-or-nothing, take-it-or-leave-it plan. Think of it more like a toolkit or a set of Legos. It's a modular architecture. Individual communities can pick and choose the pieces, test them out, and assemble a version that works best for them, building a stronger future piece by piece. Which brings us back to the biggest question of all. If technology is literally building our future, who gets to write the rules? This blueprint argues that the answer has to be all of us. And it offers one very possible, very detailed starting point for how we might actually begin that incredible collective work of shaping a future that's more dignified and prosperous for everyone.